Hello, and thank you for checking out this video on Fearless Dating. My name is Dr. Kristen Hick, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in dating, relationship, and post-relationship growth and recovery. This video was filmed at Meet Mindful Single Bash and includes me sharing with Denver singles how fear influences relationship choices, how to date outside your box, and how to fearlessly date. If you'd like to know more about fearless dating, check out my website, centerforsharedinsight.com, to sign up for my email list and get your free copy of my new ebook, Fearless Living and Loving: How Fearlessness Can Transform Your Life, Love, and Relationships. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. So today I'm going to talk to you about fearless dating. We talk about what is your safety or your comfort zone, how fearlessness can help you, and how it's kind of a struggle to step into the fearlessness, but how it can really transform your relationships when dating. If you have questions, feel free to ask them, but if you wait till the end so that we make sure we have time to get through everything, that might help, because I know we're running over on time with all the presenters. So we all have a box. Every single one of us has a box. It's a box that we feel comfortable in, we feel familiar. It's kind of like where we feel our most comfortable. It's probably our typical or our usual. And every time we step outside that box and outside of our comfort zone, we're met with fear. It's like, ugh, it's that like big wall of fear. And so what we usually do is we go back over our comfort zone because it's still safe, it's still familiar. But what that does is while we may feel comfortable, we don't ever grow. We don't ever reach out, we don't branch out, and so we limit our opportunity for growth in our relationships. So for those of you who are dating, thinking about dating, or have a family member or a friend who's dating, you know what this box looks, feels like. It's familiar. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about how fearless dating can transform your relationships and your dating forever. And I say forever because any change you make towards this zone, you change forever. Okay? On a neurological basis, on a relational basis, any new thing is a good thing for you. So I'm going to talk about a couple examples throughout the evening. And I was told we had a whiteboard, but we're going to just wing it without markers. So I'll probably refer you to the note cards a little bit more than I naturally would have. We're going to talk about 3 different characters. They might relate to you, they might not, they might be kind of similar. The first character is Mark. Mark plays it safe, staying in his box, by never really committing before he knows that it is absolutely 100% the right thing for him. He exhausts all other options, he makes sure there's no other options, he may have a backup on the side. Mark doesn't commit because to commit would be stepping into fear. Okay, to like settle down with someone, to get comfortable with someone. Joe plays it safe when he starts dating by only texting the person he wants to take out. He can, edit, re-edit, review before he actually sends that text. He never really has to be vulnerable by saying the wrong thing. And so he doesn't call, to ask someone out. He doesn't really call even in between days when he's been dating, because he's playing it safe. And he also kind of waits a little while between texts or calls because he doesn't want to appear too eager. But he really does like this person. And he wants to see this person again. So he doesn't step outside his comfort zone. Veronica stays inside of her box by getting out of a relationship and diving straight into another relationship. No time for waiting, no time for sifting through the feelings. No time to sift through the feelings of what it felt like to go through a breakup, what it feels like to be alone, to not know when the next person in her life might come. And so she dives straight in without any time to process or to be with herself. So these are 3 characters we'll come back to a little bit later. So what is the dating inside the box? Thank you. What does dating inside the box entail? Well, to me, it entails the who, forgive my writing, wow, what, and how. about your own comfort zone, your dating box, there's 3 things it entails. It's the who. So who is this? Who do you normally go for? Is this a certain type of person? Is it the size, color of hair, an ethnicity, whether they've been divorced, they've been married, they have kids, they have no kids, they want kids, they're introverted, they're extroverted, they're vegan, they're into, mindful living, they're not. Everyone has a typical person you typically go for, okay? Start to imagine that. Then there's a what. So what do you typically do when you're dating? Are there certain date activities that you will rely on? You go to dinner spots or bars, but you don't ever branch out to go to an improv show, which I will be honest, would scare the living daylights out of me. But you don't maybe branch out at the things you do, the activities you do, or maybe it's that you only on an online date and you don't ever branch out to meet someone at a place like this, or go to the coffee shop and go, that looks like a person I'd like to get to know, and just walk up and start talking to them. You may call versus text. You may do a lot of different kinds. You might tend towards one type of communication versus others. You also might really go the gestures or the actions that you're dating. So maybe you are really good with affection, or maybe you are not really good with affection, and you kind of tend to do certain things in your comfort zone. Maybe affection really scares you, and so you tend to kind of just play safe, don't do that. And the how is about how you go about dating. It's the quality. It's about, do you go fast? Do you go slow? Do you take your time? It's also about your boundaries. Do you have really flexible boundaries? Do you have inflexible boundaries? Does everyone know what a boundary is? Mm-hmm. Like the imaginary line we draw upon ourselves to teach people how to treat us? Boundaries. It may also be that you fall into love instead of rise in love. There's a blogger for a lot of be mindful about that. Yeah. Can you repeat that?
Yeah.
Rising in love instead of falling in love. I think it's March's Fearless.
Can you give us a Reader's Digest version of what that means?
Oh, it's about not falling into a person in a relationship, but keeping yourself and keeping your life intact as you grow with that other person. You rise with them. Both people going together to create a stronger individuals and whole. I think that covers the how. So start to think about these hows. Some examples are you may, will not want to risk saying the wrong thing. So you have a list of things you generally talk about on dates that you don't really vary from. Or maybe you plan dates where you don't really have to do a lot of talking, so you don't have to get too vulnerable and you can kind of play it safe. Or you pick the favorite restaurant that's a block from your house, so you don't even have to walk very far. You know how the food is, you know how expensive it is, it's generally an okay place. And if the date goes bad, you're not too far from home. The date goes good, also not too far from home. So, starting to get a feel for this. Maybe it's that you only date your type. Maybe it's like you go for your physical type and you can't, no matter what all the other qualities are, if the person meets your physical type, you stay with them. Some other examples are, maybe you have a list of 20 characteristics. 20 characteristics that your date must satisfy to be able to date them, instead of maybe a list of 5 that really are important to you, that really call to your soul, and that you can't bend from. And those are ways that you keep yourself safe from fear. Or maybe you feel as though if you don't date a particular type of person, maybe it's your family background, or who's telling you what you should date or who you should date, maybe you don't feel worthy unless you're dating that kind of person. Come on in. Yeah. It's not too late. Nope, come on in.
Grab one of these.
Something else. Anyone? The emotion that we're getting at, that we're trying to avoid. Fear. Exactly. Whether it's a fear of being alone, or fear of being vulnerable, a fear of saying something silly or stupid, or not knowing the right thing to say, or a fear of missing out, which is huge. It's a fear. And everyone has a fear. We all have fears. And now I say fear is a continuum. So we have one side of the continuum is terror, right? And then we have the other side of the continuum is more like uneasiness, discomfort, and then there's everything in between. So when I say fear, it's not necessarily like horror movie, although it can feel like that sometimes. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. But what is fear? Fear is, it's really an adaptive concept. So fear is a whole, it's like really interesting. So it's, you perceive something in your sensory field. Maybe it's a sound. And that sound transmits to your brain. Your brain goes through all these certain kind of organs, and to be honest, like I haven't remembered since my license test many years ago.
Eustachian tubes, it goes through Eustachian tubes.
Okay, thank you. You know, the amygdala does its thing, hippocampus does its thing, your hypothalamus does its thing. What order, who knows? But what it does is it's a neurological, biological process in which your brain processes fear. It says what it kind of makes meaning out of it. And then you have a thought of like, this is fear. And then you have an emotion. And that will range based on the type of incident of it, you know, the occurrence that it is. The thing is, fear is really adaptive because it's the reason we're all here tonight. If our ancestors had not experienced fear, they would have walked outside of the cave and they would have gotten eaten. But because of fear, they realized the lion was out there and they didn't want to get eaten, so they stayed inside. So fear can be really adaptive in a lot of circumstances. One of which is, what do parents tell their children when they're young about strangers?
Don't take stranger danger.
Stranger danger, don't take candy, don't talk to them either, right? Don't talk to strangers. Blatant statements. And you're gonna get in trouble if you do it. Well, if that child grows up and never kind of adapts that message to an adult message, what would happen? Antisocial, they wouldn't meet anyone, they wouldn't be here, they wouldn't have a job, they might not, ever date because they wouldn't talk to strangers. So while children don't have the cognitive and psychological capacity to differentiate between a good and bad stranger, adults have the ability through development and context and age and all sorts of other factors to do it. So therefore, it's adaptive at one point, not adaptive at this point. Same thing happens with fear in relationships. So we create scripts or models of relationships that create this box based on our experiences with our family, with our friends early in life, who we play with, our teachers, our community, our religious organizations, society, and then our dating relationships. We learn what relationships are generally like, what they should be like, and that generally informs what goes in this box, okay? So let's take a step outside of this box, because what maybe was adaptive at one point may not be working for you at this point, okay? So fearless dating, over here, if we step outside the box, this is where fearless dating occurs, is brushing up and leaning in to fear that comes up when we date outside of our box, when we do anything outside of our comfort zone. And so you lean in it, being able to get more comfortable over time with it. Okay, it's not easy at first. And in fact, you're probably going to want to jump right over here instantly because this feels better. And really in the process that I work with clients, but also within your own lives, you take a step towards the fear, and they go, oh, I don't know, you take a step back, and then it's that engaging of that struggle, engaging in the struggle with fear that is essential for growth. So it's not just one time you step outside your box, well, that was great, I'm gonna do that again. It's kind of a backwards and forwards kind of dance until you get it right. You're like, okay, I got this. This feels so much better. I think I'm gonna continue to do this. Now, obviously, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's kind of the process. So let's go back to Mark, Joe, and Veronica for a moment. So if Mark was stepping outside of his comfort zone, he would go, you know what? I really like this guy. I really like this And I think I want to really commit to him. I think I'm going to take this chance. And you know what? I may get hurt, I may miss out, but this is worth it. Joe will step outside of his comfort zone by calling Kate, who, you know, is delighted to hear that he wants to take her out on a date. He's delighted. And so he fumbles over his words, and he maybe says something kind of silly, but she laughs, and she enjoys it, and she appreciates the effort. And then she hangs up the phone, and then he maybe follows it up with a text. He said, "No, it was really nice to talk to you. I can't wait to meet you. Here's the address of where we're meeting." And she's delighted, right? He has risked being too eager, and he stepped outside his comfort zone. And you know what? I think that date's probably going to go a lot better. He's already scored points. Veronica, if you recall, she dives right back into relationships. She takes some time to date herself. She steps into outside her comfort zone, and she says, "You know what? This feels awful. This feels uncomfortable. I don't know if I'm going to find someone else. This feels lonely. But I'm going to just be with this. I'm going to be with these feelings. I'm going to get to know myself." So what is fearlessness and what is it not? So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what fearlessness is and how that can relate to fearless dating. Fearlessness is not a lack of boundaries. It's not a lack of limits. It's not flying to Vegas with someone you do not know and going on a first date. It is not walking down a dark alley. It's not without boundaries. It's still with yourself intact, but just pushing up against your comfort zone a little bit more. Fearless is not also the absence of fear. Okay? Fear is essential for fearless dating to work. You have to sit with the fear that this feels uncomfortable, and I'm going to lean into it safely with your emotional and physical safety in mind, and I'm going to grow with it. Fear will become, this is kind of a good way to understand fearlessness, is fear will become less as you become more comfortable with it. As you actually approach it and get used to it and get comfortable with it, you'll go, "Oh, this doesn't feel so bad anymore. Oh, this feels a little more comfortable. Oh, well, I didn't think I could date this person or do this on a date, but okay, I'm growing, I'm doing this." So fearless is the way to safely lean into your fear, to go through it. So I'm wondering how many of you are thinking, like, this sounds good, but this seems really hard, or this looks like it would take a lot of energy, or, man, this is really new. Does anyone kind of feel, yeah, I think it's really new. It's a lot of energy. To date in this comfort zone, to stay in your comfort zone on really anything, right? You conserve energy, because you know how to do it. You know this, it's your typical, it's your usual. You know, you can do this in your sleep, practically, sort of. And the thing is, when you step into this zone, this fearless zone, you have to expend energy. You have to do things that you haven't done before in ways you haven't done before, so it's new, so you have to expend energy. But every little bit of energy that you put into it pays off in really great ways. Maybe you'll learn a lesson, you'll go, "Oh, okay, well I tried it and it didn't work," but now you'll know, right? And then you'll go, "Well, maybe I'll try this," but then you'll know. So if we could go to the cards that I gave to you, and I just want you to take away something tonight that maybe you'll use when you leave here, when you go out back into the dating room. Maybe, I don't know about sharing it, but it might be a little too vulnerable. But if you can think about who, what, and how is in your safe zone. If just one thing pops to your mind, just so that you can start to think about this and maybe carry it on later. Who, what, and how is in your comfort zone, your safe zone. By the way, I've been playing around with a lot of things. Your comfort zone, your safe zone, your comfort box, your safety box, your fearless zone. Whatever words feel right to you is okay. Like, you don't have to call it anything I've been calling it. If you have your own metaphor that works, use it. Use it. These are just some words that kind of come to me. So, And then if you can think about, if you stepped, I'll wait a few minutes. I think. So if you think about your typical, what's your typical, your go-to? That would be your who, what, and how. Okay, I'll move on to the second part, but I encourage you to continue once you leave. And I did them small enough so you can put them in your back pockets for the gentlemen, and you put it in your purse for the women, so you don't have to walk up there with this card, and you know, you have it safe. Secret safe, and it's safe. Secret is safe in the room. So let's talk about your fear zone, your fearless zone. You stepped outside your comfort zone. Who would that look like? Who would that be? I'm sure there's a person you've seen at Starbucks, or at your favorite restaurant, or at work, or in your community, or here, that may be like, well, yeah, but I don't know, they're not really my type. They might be a little out of my comfort zone. Who would that be? What do they look like? And sometimes it's really helpful to imagine a character that kind of brings the who to life. Maybe it's a former significant other that kind of is like the prototype for your comfort zone. It's the what. So what do you usually do, or what could you do if you stepped outside your comfort zone? What would you do on dates? Would you call? Would you text? Would you do online dating in a different way than you've been doing it so far? Would you approach someone in your community? A coffee shop? What would you do differently? Maybe you'll go to that improv show. We'll see you there. Good one though. maybe you'll go to an art class. There's so many different things that I think are outside of so many people's boxes in so many different ways. We all have them. And then how would you approach dating differently if you were in your fearless zone? Would you have different boundaries? Would you go a little slower? Would you go a little faster? Would you try to rise in love rather than falling head over heels madly, crazily in love and can't imagine your life without them? Which I know has happened to all of us. So how would it be different? So the last part. So once you safely lean into this fearless zone, what's on the other side? I like to think of it as kind of a question mark. You can call it a transformational space, call it whatever you would like, but it's the unknown. It's the possibility, it's the opportunity for love that you just never even knew about, that you just never even imagined. It could be what's on the other side. Any questions?
You come on dates with us?
I would love to do that if that were appropriate.
You're gonna sit over there and be like, I have a little camera and
Yes.
critique it.
Yes.
So it's like, it sounds great, right? Like approaching fear and then you maybe do the call instead of the text and it totally falls flat. And then there's like a reflexive, not just a retreat back into what was comfortable, but possibly to the totally other side of the comfort
Oh
box.
yeah, you're going this and you're going, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, over here.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I would imagine maybe the deep mindfulness that we all have our own toolbox for how to deal with those limiting beliefs, et cetera. But what do you tell clients about that process?
First off, I always say it's practice. Everything that we do in our lives is practice. We're playing around with it, we're practicing it, we're giving it a try, knowing that it's not about it going perfectly, but it's about us just breaching our comfort zone to practice. And what happens is you do that so much, if you really feel genuinely that calling versus texting is what you need to do to improve your relationships, keep doing it. I'm not saying that it's not going to, you're not gonna get a hang up on the other line once in a while, or it's not gonna go well, or it won't change things magically. But it is about doing something a little bit different and practicing and playing around with it to see how it feels and to see that that one person that it really may mean something to, it makes a difference.
I mean, what do you tell people about like my like phobia is like, I could like practice with like the people that I'm not that into, but there's maybe this one guy that I'm like super interested in, that he is the one I will not practice my fear techniques on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like you're asking, is that a real thing? That's what
No, I mean, like,
Oh,
what would
God.
you be like, okay, well, then like throw the gauntlet down and like call that one? Or do you go like, no, it's okay, like call the others and like get comfortable with that?
I would say a little bit of both. There's no right or wrong way to do it. My clients will tell you I live in the gray, so I'm never going to say there is a right or a wrong. It's about trying it. Maybe you practice as much as you can with the people you aren't all that interested in, and then maybe you'll get the courage and you'll try it. If you don't, you'll still grow from that too. You know, you're still going to be growing in your process because you're still going to be getting out there and practicing. Any other questions, comments? I feel like we might be getting right at time. I'm not sure when we started because I know we were running.
How do you know that your box is wrong? It's not where you should be, that you need to step outside that box?
It's usually if you keep doing the same thing in the box, you're not getting where you want to. It begs the question, is there something that you could be doing that is just a little bit different? I'm not saying change who you are, what you look like, what you do, but just expand. I think all of us are here tonight because we actually believe in the value of expanding our lives, our minds, and our communities, because that's what Be Mindful is about. So I think it's just tiny expansion outside. I also think that sometimes when you don't know whether your box needs to be expanded or taken outside, it's always really good to ask a couple of really close friends. Hey, you've been hearing about me dating. You've been listening to my relationships for a long time. What do you think? Do you notice anything? Can you give me some really honest, hard to hear feedback? And sometimes they can go, well, yeah, I've noticed this, you know? So that's another way that you might know. Does that answer the question? Any others? It's been great.